Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It is Professor Anime, and welcome back to, yet again, another review here on the channel. Today, we are going to be talking about Kino's Journey 2017, the reboot of sorts to the original Kino's Journey. We're going to be talking about Episode 2 in today's video, so without further ado, let's get this started. So when it comes to this episode of Kino's Journey, this was telling the story of the Coliseum like the original did. Now, let me give some clarification when it comes down to the Coliseum. The Coliseum is definitely one of my favorite, I guess you can call it an arc within the original Kino's Journey, because it was a 2-episode storyline, and it was very, very well done in the original, and there was a lot of philosophical topics that were brought up, as well as other interesting characters, and just all around, it was a very, very interesting tale within the series. Now, in today's episode, we actually get to see a kind of like a remake of, you know, the Coliseum arc in a way. Now, fans of the original Kino's Journey who have not watched the episode yet, I'm telling you right now that please do not go into this first episode and thinking that you're going to get the exact same thing that you got in the original. Oh no. Oh no. Like, this episode that showed off the Coliseum was a very condensed version of the Coliseum that we got in the original, and also kind of vastly different, kind of like in a more, this episode seems to have like a more modernized style to, you know, the combatants who were in the Coliseum, but all in all, it more or less follow the same concepts as to what the original offered. So in terms of what we got in this episode of Kino's Journey, this episode specifically focused on the Coliseum arc, comparing to the original. And when it comes down to the country that Kino comes across within this episode, it turns out to be a country in which it has completely, you know, it's almost as if it is changing with every king that succeeds to the throne, necessarily. And let me explain as to what exactly the rules of this country are. So, with the current rules of the country, of the current king who is, you know, living and is on the throne of this country, overthrowing everyone, he laid down the rules that everyone who comes into this city has to participate in the Coliseum. So whoever ends up coming across this country must participate within the Coliseum if they wish to be granted citizenship under this country and to actually have a place to live in. But it all is staked up against your own life. So you have those who are, you know, aiming to find a home of their own, and you as well, combating against each other in a life or death situation. Now, you can yield. You can yield, but if you choose to yield, and if your opponent actually accepts your yield, and trust me, they don't have to, but if they do accept your yield, then you are reduced automatically to a second-class citizen, or in this country's case, a slave. So it's not really a win-win situation for anyone, because even if you do win, you are known as a murderer. But however, for those who have won the Coliseum and have gained access to their citizenship within the country, I guess technically they would be considered murderers too, and you will both be on equal pedestals of each other because you technically committed the same atrocities. But if the laws abided in order to grant your citizenship, it ultimately does not matter according, you know, to the laws. So necessarily what this, you know, whole chapter focused on was a rule under a dictatorship. And reasons being as to why exactly this episode of Kino's Journey was a more condensed version of the original tale of the Coliseum. Well, number one, this episode was a condensed version of the original tale, because right at the very end of the episode, we already see Kino on another journey to another country. So pretty much, you know, the Coliseum episode is just one episode within this new rendition of Kino's Journey. Number two, the king. The king in the original tale, like if, oh man, the king. You see, when it comes down to the king's character within the original adaptation of Kino's Journey, he was messed up, and we got to see how messed up he was as an individual. And not only that, we also got to see, you know, more of a relationship between Shizu, one of the characters that got introduced in this episode, who fights Kino at the very end of the episode, who turns out to be the prince, or, you know, the son of the current king at the time. And there's just a lot more clarification with the characters, especially their motives in the original. When it comes down to this new adaptation of Kino's Journey, for this episode specifically focusing on the Coliseum, many of the motivations and also the characteristics of certain characters is completely glossed over. Now, does this mean that this was a bad episode of Kino's Journey? No, not by any stretch of the means. I actually really enjoyed this episode of Kino's Journey, and it was kind of cool to see, you know, Kino actually go up, I guess, up against different opponents in, you know, this new adaptation as well, for, you know, this more modernized style of Kino's Journey, especially in the beginning. Like, one of the first people she ends up going up against is a huge guy with a mace, and we get to see how fast Kino draws her gun, shoots the whole thing off. You know, I thought that was really cool. I also like some of the dialogue sequences between Hermes and Kino within this episode as well, and I also thought that the cinematography was also pretty good in this episode as well. But other than that, it was that was really it. So when it comes down comparing, and I know, you know, not a lot of people like to compare, you know, two different things, you know, and put it on the same pedestal of each other. But the thing is when there is an older version of Kino's Journey and then there's a newer adaptation, you know, it's kind of hard to do that in a sense. So I will say this right now, the older Kino's Journey, the original, definitely, so far, so, like, when it comes down to the Coliseum in general, as far as that story alone, definitely far superior than what we got in this episode. And this is why I really, really do recommend, for those of you who have not watched the original, you are missing out on just amazing stuff. And if you truly want to get more clarification when it comes down to some of these characters within this arc specifically, as well as figuring out their overall motives within this arc as well, especially when it comes to Kino's actions as to why she killed the king within this episode, then definitely you have to watch the original. I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to. But trust me, you're doing a disservice if you choose not to watch the original. Alright, so I think that about does it for my personal thoughts and opinions on what I thought about episode 2 of Kino's Journey 2017. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode in the comments down below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? As a fan of the original, did you still enjoy this episode? I did. I still thought it was a pretty enjoyable episode, but definitely when it comes down to the original is far more superior. So yeah, be sure to let me all know what you thought in the comments down below. Be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and hit that red subscribe button down below if you want to see more content in the future from me on this channel. With that said, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for 5K. Let's continue growing, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out.